The people up in Canada are Canucks, as we call them. Our little boys and girls are moving in the large numbers to protest these COVID measures and to cause their Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to resign. And of course, we wanted to talk about that with someone who's been covering that very, very intricately and detailed. Marie Oakes, who is a journalist and a reporter. She's, I believe, American, but also was living in Canada, but recently moved back down here. And we're excited to have her on the show to get an update and to find out how, if you're in Canada, you can fight back, or if in any other country, how we can continue to resist this World Economic Forum Great Reset push for a one world government with no privacy where you own nothing. Anyway, I'd like to welcome Marie Oakes to Slightly Offensive.
Thank you for having me on, Elijah. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it really is good to be here. So people get confused. People say that you're a Canadian, but aren't you just an American, but you lived in Canada? What's the story there?
Well, I'm a dual citizen, so I get the best of both worlds, whether it be Joe Biden's America or Justin Trudeau's Canada.
Yeah, it's hard to pick who's better, right? Because you have Biden and you have everything happening in the United States, and then you have Justin Trudeau, who he's sitting down, which is okay, but it's just what he likes to do. And it's like, between the two countries, what do you say is the best place to live at the moment?
Definitely the US. I mean, right now I live in a blue state, but in a lot of ways, people just are no longer living totally in fear. Of course, you're going to have a lot of people who are, but generally, if you don't wear a mask, where I live, at least in Illinois, people don't care. No one comes up to you screaming like I see those videos coming out of New York or, say, California. So life is definitely better here than it was when I was living in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, which many of your viewers, if they know or do not know, was basically the most lockdown area in all of North America and sort of still is.
Yeah, so what's the situation like? I mean, I know it changes from territory to territory, but if we're accounting some of the worst territories to live during this lockdown stuff and maybe some of the better ones, what's life like for Canadians right now?
Well, life is pretty bad across the board, I would say. Almost everywhere in Canada right now, they have vaccine passports. So if you want to go into different establishments, change depending on the province you're in. Say, if you're in Quebec and you're unvaccinated, you, as of this week, are no longer allowed into any retail locations that are larger than 1,500 square meters. And say, if you want to go to Walmart or Costco to get your prescriptions filled or go grocery shopping, they are making it so an employee has to come with you to ensure that you're not buying any other items. Say, like at Walmart, if you want to buy clothes, you're not allowed to do that. So, vaccine passports in Quebec are very widespread, and they're also talking about taxing the unvaccinated so they can use the healthcare system. And in places like Ontario, although it's not as drastic and draconian, they still do have vaccine passports. They've had here and there like stay at home orders and those sort of things. And that's kind of how it is all over Canada at this point.
So you're basically like you're othered. You're basically not a citizen. You don't have rights unless you're vaccinated. It's so weird though. A lot of information is out there about the inability for this current form of vaccine in fighting against Omicron. Of course, they say it still helps, right? But it's not as good as they would like. So they're developing a new vaccine for Omicron. But unfortunately, Omicron season may soon be coming to a close. We have a new variant that they're now monitoring. So it's like they can't even keep up with this stuff. It's like their development and their research is always a step behind. And so it's like, what is the science? What is the research? What is the government telling the people is the justification for taking away their rights and for treating them like second-class citizens for not getting the vaccine?
I mean, right now it's just a blame game. In a place like Quebec, they keep just saying, oh, we have to do this because our hospital system's collapsing and they are overrunning our hospitals. That's why we have to give them a tax. The tax hasn't been completely worked out, but it really seems like it's something they're going to pursue. They've been very harsh on their rhetoric to the unvaccinated. Now they also are setting up all these outdoor clinics for people to go get vaccinated. They are now investing money into calling campaigns to call the unvaccinated Quebecers, which is only 10% of the population of Quebec. So they have all of these restrictions, and it's about 10% of the population that is unvaccinated. So the messaging isn't making sense. But the thing about Quebec and Canada, kind of in a whole, is they have a lot of trust in their government. It seems like trust is right now crumbling, but it's still there, and people are largely in favor of these type of restrictions and ostracizing the unvaccinated, because in a large part the population is all unvaccinated. I mean, the population is all vaccinated, so they don't feel these measures personally, and when these measures are not personally affecting them, I just think people don't really understand the severity of the measures and how wrong it really is.
Yeah, it is interesting. In a lot of these crown colonies, like the in New Zealand and in Australia, as well as United Kingdom, which we did see just push back a lot of their measures. I mean, what do Canadians think about that? I mean, I know everyone likes to mock America. It's like, well, it's America, it's just America. Like, and they always make up stats about gun violence, not realizing that those stats are actually a lie, and that most of those gun violence are suicides, and that over half of them are suicide, and the other most of them are involving gangs, and this just really has nothing to do with a gun problem. Anyway, they like to talk crap. But then in the UK, our British friends, the Proppers, have decided to roll back the mask mandate and also some of the measures after, of course, the controversies with Boris Johnson and many other people partying during the strictest parts of the lockdown. I mean, do Canadians look to the United Kingdom as a possible solution? Are they completely independent and going to continue more like Australia? What are your predictions?
Well, it's hard to say because there is such a divide in Canada between people who want more measures, if you could even imagine that someone wants more measures than are currently in place, and then the people who are kind of sick of this and actually have to deal with these measures. Because a lot of the people who want these measures and more measures are people who are largely not affected by it. They're government bureaucrats, they're people in the media, they're people with at home type of jobs. They're not people who have to be a truck driver, have to deal with the border, have to deal with how annoying these restrictions are on a day-to-day basis. They're not in the service industry where they have to wear a mask all day long, or they have to be the ones checking people's vaccine passports. So there is that divide. But like we're seeing with this trucker convoy, which we're going to talk about further in your segment, you're seeing a lot of support of people wanting these sort of mandates and restrictions lifted. You're seeing a lot of children. They're sick of this. They're sick of not being able to do school sports, because in a large part of Canada, children are not allowed to do sports right now. And for many of your viewers, I'm sure when you were younger in school, you probably did extracurricular activities, and that's being taken away from all of these kids. And if there's an outbreak in one of their classrooms, their school shuts down. They're back on to at home learning. And I don't think many kids like this. I had to do the at home learning for the last semester of my university, and it was the worst experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. We could get into some of those things, but this wasn't meant to be discouraging to our audience. It's actually interesting with this large protest that we're tracking. A lot of people should be tracking, and if you're not, let more people know about this, because people in Canada need to hear about it. The media is doing the best they can to ignore it. I'm sure the mainstream media there doesn't want to give it the credit it is. Anything that helps the people in the country, the media, obviously aligned against its people, will refuse to cover, and things that will hurt us and degenerate us and ruin us, they will put on blast, like the dangers of the Omicron. Well, I was reading in Fox News that the Freedom Convoy left from Vancouver to Ottawa on Sunday to protest the federal government's vaccine mandates for cross-border truckers, which took effect on January 15th. The Canadian Trucking Alliance estimates that roughly 15% of truckers in the country are not fully vaccinated, or about 16,000 truck drivers. And you see a picture here. So this obviously, it just looks like, oh, it's a little small protest. What is going on? What is this? I'm hearing a lot about it. And what size is this protest at this point? And then we'll talk a little bit about like what it's for and what they hope to accomplish.
So if you want to follow more of the convoy protest, you can definitely follow me on all my social media platforms. I'm at the Marie Oaks. But what's been going on is that was sort of the catalyst, was the vaccine mandate for drivers going cross border. So the Trudeau government put in mandatory vaccine policy that made it so if you were a Canadian truck driver trying to come back into Canada from the US, doing a load, if you were not vaccinated, you were now subject to testing requirements and quarantine. So you'd have to quarantine for 2 weeks. That really hurts your job. Usually these truck drivers, they go home for maybe a day and then pick up another load and are back in the US. And that was the policy before. They were exempt from these border restrictions prior to, I think it was January 15th. And we're also seeing this policy, a similar policy in the United States. But we're going to talk about Canada here. So this kind of prompted a lot of truck drivers, and a lot of people think it's only vaccinated or unvaccinated truck drivers. There's actually a lot of vaccinated truck drivers getting involved in this because they're done with everything. And the Fox News article kind of is towing the line with this. They're kind of taking the mainstream media word for it in Canada that this protest is primarily about that vaccine mandate that only affects drivers. Well, this entire protest has morphed into something so much bigger. This protest now is encompassing, they want all of the restrictions, all of the mandates on all Canadians to be lifted. They want the vaccine passports gone. They want all of it. They want life back to normal. So this has been an all-encompassing protest. Right now, the numbers are really hard to grasp and estimate because as it's moving through Canada, Canada is a really massive country. That's why this convoy had to start last weekend, because going from BC to Ottawa is like a 4 or 5 day trip. So these are very dedicated drivers, and they're picking up drivers and supporters on the way to Ottawa, because as you're driving through BC, you're driving through several more provinces. And as they're driving through these provinces, they have these, areas where they're doing meetups, and then those drivers will add on. So it's not that it's necessarily one big convoy. There is one big convoy coming from the west, but there is multitudes of convoys making their way to Ottawa right now. Today, they started in the east. So the eastern leg of the convoy started because it's closer to Ottawa, because Ottawa's in Ontario, more eastern part of Canada, closer to Quebec. So we will really know how large this is on Saturday and Sunday when they start reaching to Ottawa. And it's not just truckers part of this protest now. Now there are thousands upon thousands of just pickup truck drivers, car drivers, people who are just going to meet up in Ottawa and protest. So I think this is going to be probably one of the largest protests in Canada's history. It will definitely break records in terms of a truck convoy. It's crazy the videos that are coming out of Canada. It's crazy when you see the drone footage or aerial footage. And what's even crazier is the people who can't do the convoy, who aren't truck drivers, who can't make it to Ottawa this weekend. Well, they're showing their support. So in overpasses upon overpasses on large, so many kilometers or miles long, you're seeing people lining the sides of highways on top of overpasses just to cheer on and support these truckers and the drivers who are making their way to Ottawa. And it's an insane, really inspiring thing.
Yeah, I was saying that the people, I mean, I might be wrong, but I was thinking they're saying that it could be up to over 1 million people could end up being at the Capitol by the point to protest. Perhaps, they don't know, but definitely in the tens of thousands, and definitely continuing and moving forward. And it's hard to encompass. I mean, when they're saying it could be anywhere from like tens of thousands to like 1.4 million people that descend upon the Capitol, I think that one thing they should be is afraid, right? And realizing that people are tired of this. It's not just unvaccinated people. It's sort of like the United States discussion on like race crime and whatnot has been similar to the COVID thing, where it's like, well, with Black Lives Matter, it's like, we really need to take policing out of black neighborhoods. And then you're like, well, talk to the black people, and they're like, we don't want the police out of our neighborhoods. Actually, that's not true. And it gets misrepresented. Like, we're helping black people by getting this. It's like, no, why don't you ask them what they want? And governments have taken a position of like telling us what we need rather than, writing actual legislation and getting votes on things and putting things into place. Everything's been emergency orders and mandates and things that are really not exactly a democratic way of governing a country. And especially too, like with the people now revolting in many countries and saying, enough is enough. It gives me hope. At least I hope that people in Canada see what's happening in the United States, how we've defeated a lot of our mandates through the courts and in fighting them by I'm not saying this is good necessarily, but the government was fearing genuine violence and revolt from the people. They were really scared about that. It's true. If you want to look that up, they were doing drills in North Carolina, preparing in case people tried to topple the government over extreme COVID measures. In the UK, they were having similar issues as well. And so people threatening and fighting back, don't be the one to threaten the feds with violence, but also you can start by doing something a lot less dangerous, and that's actually joining these protests. If people want to join the protest, if they want to get involved in this in Canada, I mean, I don't know if maybe American truckers that are over there might want to get involved too. I'm not sure. Where are they at right now, or like where are they going, and how do people join in?
Well, It's hard to say exactly where everyone is because, like I said, there's several different convoys making its way there. So if you want to get involved, just get to Ottawa. Go. You have a couple days left to make it there. So that's what I would do. But also, there's Facebook groups that are huge that are posting the maps, posting the times of when they're going to be in certain places. They're in Ontario right now, the main leg of it, and now they're leaving places like New Brunswick and Quebec tomorrow before the protest because it's closer. So if you're looking for, I believe it's called Convoy to Ottawa 2022 on Facebook. And then there's a couple others, and there's websites that have all the routes. But right now, what a lot of these truckers and people trying to make it to Ottawa are finding is there's a lot of blockades or, halting of it because of weather conditions. It's really cold in Canada right now, if you can imagine. So the road conditions aren't very good. So a lot of road closures are taking place right now, which are impacting this route right now. But speaking to the point about what the media is doing and, potential for violence, the media right now for the last 2 days has been really pushing this idea that this trucker convoy is not peaceful. This is going to lead to, this is what they've actually called it, January 6th in Canada. They're saying that the truckers are going to create January 6th. So, for all your viewers, I'm sure they know what that means, what that entails, what they're trying to push on these truckers. Even Justin Trudeau just recently came out and said these people have, horrible views, they have horrible opinions, they're terrible, dangerous people. These are all things he essentially said. And now he's basically in hiding because he was exposed to someone who had COVID, even though he's tested negative. So it kind of sounds like he's just hiding. But it is really concerning, the rhetoric in the Canadian media of trying to say these are extremist. When you see the videos, these are like nice little kids and women giving lunches to the truckers and people with Canadian flags. They don't look like insurrectionists trying to burn down their Capitol building. They just want to be heard because for so long, like you said, everything's been governed by decree, emergency orders. It's no different in Canada, and it's actually worse in Canada because they don't have as strong of a constitution as the US. They don't have the sort of courts you have in the US. Time and time again, ruling after ruling, the courts in Canada have said that, this is a public health emergency. Sorry, like
Right.
the old laws don't matter. This supersedes them.
Yeah, it is. It is alarming. But I do want to say for anyone that's going there, you know, it is good that the government is afraid of its people. Obviously, the government should take the note. If they're afraid of violence, there can be a justification for war and different things around the world in different situations. And it's like, well, maybe if your people are trying to topple you, instead of being afraid and hiding, you should say, what are we doing wrong that we're afraid that someone's trying to topple us? Now, I don't believe that for them, but I'm just saying, if you're genuine about this, well, it's kind of BS, because it's like they would be taking way bigger measures if they really thought there was going to be like a coup or something, right? Even January 6th, they tried to make it an insurrection. It just didn't, it fell flat. But I meant, like, if you're genuinely thinking that your people might revolt, it probably means you're governing very poorly, and you need to change the things that are ruining their lives. People don't just revolt for no reason. It's not like we're not the French, right? We don't just protest for no reason. We're like, people protest when they're angry and they're mad. And if they're going to use violence and you're afraid of that, then you need to rethink a lot of things, because people are very peace loving in West, in our own homeland at least. We love foreign wars, or at least the U.S. does. But in the homeland, we like to keep things good. So to the Canadians, make your voices heard. And being someone who was at January 6th, do not break the windows of your Capitol building. Or leave your trash, because it'll be known as the worst day in Canadian history, and they will use it against you. Just remember, there are other ways to do this than that. Anyway, Marie Oakes, thank you so much again for joining us here on Slightly Offensive, keeping us updated. We hope to talk to you more in the future, maybe to get an update and see what was going on. If people want to follow you, if they want to find you, I know you mentioned it earlier, where can they follow your work?
I'm at the Marie Oakes everywhere. You can find me on Twitter, Telegram, TikTok, Instagram, Getter, where else? Substack. Did I say everything? I believe so. Oh yeah, Facebook, the worst thing ever. They made me send them my ID in order for me to use my Facebook account. unfortunately, this is part of my job and I have to do horrible things like that. But I'm also a writer at the westphaliantimes.com. So if you want to find reporting there, you can also look there. And I'm covering a lot of this stuff and other international news as well, not just Canada-centric stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. Have a great rest of the time. And we are standing in solidarity with the Canadians. We hope that your protest is successful. Thank you again.
Thank you, Elijah.
A great philosopher once said that you can be 2 out of 3 things: liberal, smart, or honest, but you can't be all 3. At Slightly Offensive, we're smart and honest. And if you like this clip, head over to Slightly Offensive YouTube channel by clicking right here, where you can find new episodes of our show weekly. We're bringing you the topics, news stories, and angles that will have you saying, why the hell wasn't I subscribed sooner? Also, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to this channel too.